the Vatican, and the bishop who is in charge of this offending priest, this priest predator, Joseph J. Paul, who is in India in the Diocese of Adakamand, is being returned to ministry and is currently in active ministry after having been convicted of childhood sexual abuse in Minnesota. The Vatican and Pope Francis and the bishop in India have both made the decision to permit this predator to continue in ministry after his conviction of childhood sexual abuse, and is promoting him as safe and trustworthy and holy. And as we speak, there are hundreds of children who we know trust him and believe him to be trustworthy. So yesterday, Megan Peterson filed this lawsuit in federal court against the diocese and the bishop of Adakamand for nuisance, for the creation of a public hazard, and the danger and the choices they've made. And why did she do that? She did that because she not only was sexually violated and raped by this priest, as well as one other girl, and she had the courage to speak up and out years ago about this. She took some comfort in the fact that he was extradited, that he was convicted, that he was imprisoned, and that he would never be returned to ministry and be around kids. And when we learned, and when she learned, that in fact the Vatican and the bishop have made a decision to return him to ministry, and that he is currently the head of the Diocesan Commission for Education and the secretary for the Christian Democratic Rights Movement in India right now as we speak as a priest. We are not only disgusted and alarmed, but we realize there's a serious danger, and that Pope Francis has broken a pledge, that this bishop has broken the trust, and that this priest is a dangerous predator that needs to be stopped. And they've chosen not to stop him. And Megan Peterson and SNAP have chosen to speak up and out so that it can stop. And so we are alarmed. We consider the choice made by this bishop in the Vatican and Pope Francis to be reckless. And we are deeply saddened, but even more scared than sad today. So Megan, you filed this lawsuit. Step up to the microphone and tell us why you've taken this action, and then I'm going to ask you how you feel about what you learned.
I'm taking this action for two very, very clear reasons. The first being children deserve to be protected in India, and nobody is doing that at this point. I have the information that Joseph J. Paul is a serious offender, and I'm choosing to act and spread the word and protect those kids in India. I'm also not going to let the Catholic Church and the bishop in Adakamand take my voice away again. It was taken away 10 years ago, and I can't be re-victimized again, which is exactly what the decision that the Vatican and the bishop there is doing by placing Joseph J. Paul back into ministry.
Megan, you learned, first, you came to me when you were a teen through your parents 10 years ago. And sometime after that, we brought a civil suit. You brought a civil suit, correct?
Yes.
And you went public with that after some years, correct?
Yes.
And why did you go public at that time?
I felt that it was very important that it was other survivors could see a face and maybe relate more than just the Jane Doe name. I also felt that it was kind of a huge step for me to be able to take my voice back in that regard.
And because of you going public and bringing that to law enforcement, he was ultimately extradited back from India and convicted of criminal sexual conduct in a charge against another girl and in a complaint that was brought on behalf of you and that other girl, correct?
Yes.
And you felt, how did you feel after he was convicted, and what did that mean to you?
It was not quite the success I wanted personally for myself right away. I wish there would have been a conviction for me, but not all battles we fight are won. But there was many positive things that happened because of that, and he did get a conviction, and that was so crucial because for years we had fought against the church and them hiding and concealing the abuse, and now everybody knows what he is.
He spent almost 3 years in prison in Minnesota and India fighting extradition and because of the criminal conviction. And when you learned through the media that the Vatican had approved his reinstatement and that he was active in ministry, and this bishop was putting him back in ministry in May, how did that make you feel as the survivor who had spoken up to try to do something about this?
I felt abused and degraded and re-victimized all over again. It felt like a slap in the face to myself and other survivors of clergy sex abuse across the globe, really. And it's just a continuation of the path of destruction that the Catholic Church has already brought to my life, brought to my family's life, the communities all around this area. It was very hard for me personally to be able to separate the cruel assertion of power that Joseph J. Paul used to rape me versus what the Catholic hierarchy was using to place him back into ministry.
Well, we applaud your courage, Megan, for standing up for kids years ago and revealing the truth, standing up against the bishops at that time and exposing J. Paul, and even more so now, knowing that there are so many other kids in India at risk. And that's what I want to ask about. Put this on the screen. Megan, this is the letter that was sent, and you got a copy of this, about Joseph J. Paul from 500 people who signed this letter. And it's written to me and the prosecutor in the criminal case, right?
Yes.
And in 2010, these people wrote that we know Father J. Paul for the past 3 decades as a priest, working amidst us in various capacities as parish priest, correspondent of an esteemed school here, and as secretary of the Diocesan Education Commission. All of us, without any reservation, vouch for his impeccable character as a priest, and they claim at the second page that we and you have wrongfully accused him and falsely accused him. And attached to this letter is a signature of 500 adults and kids in India who believe him to be innocent and to be safe and to be holy. And we know him to be a danger, a predator, a priest who can't control his sexual impulses, who's currently in ministry, and a risk to every single one of these kids and everybody around him in the diocese in India as we speak. And so when you saw this and see this and how many people are exposed and trusting him, how does that make you feel?
Very, very afraid, but also it makes it very sorry. It's we have to act. These babies need us to act. They don't have anybody, and he has long arms in that country. So it just makes me very, very aware that I need to do something.
I know this is painful, Megan, but it's also courageous. Thank you. Barbara Doris, you're the National Outreach Director for SNAP Survivors Network, those abused by priests. Tell us what folks need to know about the decisions the Vatican and the bishop has made to reinstate and to continue in ministry this convicted serial offender.
Well, we've certainly heard of convicted predators being put back in parishes. We have heard a number of times about credibly accused predators being put back in parishes. But we feel that this case is unusual for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's very current. This isn't from decades ago. This is from just a few years ago. And this case has gotten international attention. It has been brought before the UN. It has been brought before the international courts at The Hague. This man is convicted. He's been extradited. He's been deported. And all of a sudden, his suspension has been lifted, not by accident, not by a local bishop, but by the Pope himself. So that says this has gone all the way to the top, and that is frightening. If they would take a predator like Jayapal, who's well known, who has had international coverage, and put him back into ministry, how many more have they very quietly slipped into dioceses, St. Paul, Crookston, St. Louis, who knows? And so while we hear these words, while we hear about their policies and procedures and tribunals, it's obviously totally ineffective and basically window dressing, since they choose to put known predators back into ministry, and they don't even feel a need to do it quietly. They've done this publicly, which we agree with Megan. It's a slap in the face to every victim who has found the courage to come forward. Megan came forward, reported it, took all the right actions. The second victim came forward and went through a criminal trial to protect others. And the Pope, in one stroke, has wiped that all out and said, well, too bad about the victims and too bad about the kids in India. I'm going to protect a predator. It's unconscionable, it's dangerous, it's mean-spirited.
And Megan and Barbara, Pope Francis has pledged that they are doing better and said all these things about how they're not going to repeat the practices of the past. What does this tell you, Megan, about the Pope's pledge to not repeat the past today and in the future? What does it make you feel about whether you're getting straight answers from the Vatican?
Well, clearly they're not giving us straight answers. I mean, his comments versus his action contradict each other day in and day out. It looks like business as usual at the Vatican. This is still a very systemic problem within the Catholic Church.
And the information that we have from Jayapal's supporters that was given to us in 2010 has been made available to the bishop in Crookston and to the bishop in India and to the Vatican. And this was reported to the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith at the Vatican in 2005 for the first time. So this is not the first and only time that the Vatican has been alerted to the danger that Jayapal poses. And to the bishop in India that has the ability to keep him out of ministry and remove him from ministry altogether, much less put him back in a parish and making him a head of education there among kids. So it is with great sorrow and even great alarm that we share this information with you all. I think it's also notable that Megan, with the Center for Constitutional Rights, went and made a complaint to The Hague and the International Criminal Court about the Vatican's systemic allowing of the rape of children, and Megan was raped by this priest, the rape of children worldwide, and that complaint was heard in the Hague. Why did you bring that complaint with the Center for Constitutional Rights, Megan?
I felt it was another way to shine the light on the issue within the Catholic Church, and I also wanted to join literally thousands of other survivors that wanted to be heard and want this problem over with within the church.
Barbara Doris, on behalf of 25,000 survivors with whom you work in SNAP, and Megan Peterson, who has, as a young person, found her voice, and now for almost 10 years has speaking it. It is yet to be heard by the Vatican. It is yet to be heard by many of the Catholic bishops. It is yet to be honored by those that can do something. But the reality is you are doing something. And you're doing something and taking and filing this federal action for nuisance against that diocese to stop them and the Vatican from continuing these dangerous practices will make a difference. And to you, we're grateful. And to SNAP, we are grateful.